How's it going, everyone? I'm VenomousStare, taking a break from finals to cast some StarCraft. And we have a PvP today, which I usually don't cast a ton of mirror matchups on my channel, but this one's special. It's between two players who I like a lot, both from North America. One of them, spawning in the top right here, playing under the ID Hagen, is not really a guy named Hagen. It's actually one of the most well-known and long-playing and veteran players in the StarCraft scene. It's NonY, or NonY, formerly of Liquid, and formerly of Artosis's excellent clan Media, which featured players like Idra, In Control, and G5 back in Brood War. But NonY is the Protoss in the top right. Now, if you don't know much about this guy, NonY, he played Protoss back in Brood War and was one of the top 5 foreigners in Brood War, right up there with Idra and White Raw. He was really the guy who could keep up with Koreans, the top foreigner, because in Brood War, if you didn't know, it was even harder for foreigners to win games than it is in StarCraft 2, as we see a 2 gateway opener coming from KingTesla, an aggressive player who will probably be called Rob for the majority of this cast, because that is his first name and his old ID. He used to play just under the ID ROB, Rob, excuse me, and Rob would often favor lots of proxy gateway play, lots of aggressive, obnoxious play that was in your face. And he's a person who likes to dictate the flow of the game with aggression. And he's gone for these 2 gateways, which will probably, yes, make 2 aggressive units, stalkers in this case. So let's see how the builds vary. NonY is going for a Stargate. So usually whenever people go for Stargate in Protoss versus Protoss, they go for an Oracle or Phoenix. NonY is a macro player. He's someone who favors safe, intelligent play. So I would say that he's more likely to go into Phoenix here and do some sort of Phoenix safe macro style. That's just really more what NonY plays stylistically, are these safe, intelligent builds. He's not really someone who relies on always catching his opponent off guard, or someone who relies on tricks or surprises. This is someone who likes to upgrade, take bases, and play defensively. He's a very strong player. Now, it is worth noting that NonY has struggled with some depression issues throughout the majority, or not necessarily the majority, but throughout a lot of the StarCraft 2 scene and time period. And this means that he really has not been a full-fledged professional gamer for the entirety of the time of StarCraft 2. This is particularly important because these games were played right after one of NonY's longest hiatuses, so perhaps NonY is a bit rusty here, but his skills are not to be underestimated. This guy has Brood War pedigree, and he was one of the only North Americans to go out to Korea, which was of course the mecca of StarCraft back in 2008, 2009. NonY was there, boots on the ground, trying to become a pro gamer in a sea of people who did not speak his language. And he made it very far in a tournament called the Courage Tournament, as we see a little bit of Stalker versus Stalker action. NonY will just retreat up to the top of his ramp and be fine, though, because a couple Stalkers are going to come out. Of course, he has the pylon to overcharge. And NonY flew in to the base of Neeb, saw what he had. This Twilight, of course, being the linchpin of that. This either means Adepts, Blink Stalkers, Speed Zealots, DTs. That's what you should think whenever you see a Twilight Council. It is very rare that someone will build a Twilight Council this early on and then go into another tech like a Robo or a Stargate. So usually whenever you can see the Twilight, that's a pretty damn good sign that it's going to be a Blink, Resonating Glaives, Charge, or DT. A lot of people know that. That's a very basic tip, but sometimes people scout Twilight and they're like, oh, especially newbies will say, oh, okay, Twilight, but not really know what it means. NonY picks a probe off, and he's going to press up here and going to go for a fight. If we go to Stalker count, there is a slight advantage for the blue player, Rob, but NonY does have the ability to fly in here with Phoenix. This pylon will be the crux of the issue. It can overcharge and chase NonY off, and it does. It doesn't even need to overcharge. The sheer threat of overcharge is enough. Now, one thing that's worth noting is the reason that Phoenix are strong is because they can constantly fly around and threaten your opponent with killing workers. Now, this is a little bit different because in Oracle, although more powerful in a singular form, just one Oracle, the Phoenix has the ability to be useful throughout the game even after your opponent builds static defense. So these Phoenix are also good at fighting and engagements because they can pick up money units like Immortals. So if you're wondering why NonY is continuing to make, or continued to make Phoenix as opposed to an Oracle, that's probably why. And notice he's flying around with them, always scouting for proxy pylons, gaining information, gaining map control. NonY's expansion just finished, and Rob's has been up for a while. Now it's worth noting that NonY's Phoenix harass has made it where Rob's second base hasn't really earned him nearly as much income as it would normally, but here Rob has Blink, which is a huge advantage, and he can just endlessly kite back. NonY really wants to fight with inside of his Guardian Shield, but Roberto just has such an extreme ability to micro because of the fact that he has Blink and NonY does not. So NonY is going to try to chase Rob back, but like I said, Rob just has an insane amount of micro ability here with Blink versus no Blink, and he can pick NonY apart. So KingTesla, Rob is going to surge into the natural here, and NonY is in trouble. He was trying to tech into Robo right when the Blink attack hit and did not have any Immortals out. Immortals, of course, counter Stalkers because they do bonus damage to Armored, and KingTesla blinks for it aggressively, and he's going to kite around and try to kill some of these Zealots. NonY is going to pull his workers. He's already down by 10, chronoing out an Immortal at the top of the ramp. Notice that Roberto here is going for double upgrades. He tries to poke up the ramp. Doesn't work. Remember, he doesn't have his Mothership Core here. He doesn't have an OBS. He doesn't even have a Robo, remember. So he can't blink up into the main. That's why you saw him commit up the ramp. Oh, he does have a Robo, excuse me, but he hasn't had it for long. And Tesla is going to pressure here and take a third, and once he takes his third, he starts to retreat. This is a great move because once you start to take your bases and start to defend, you don't want to lose your army carelessly at the front door of your opponent. Rob already knows that NonY has taken a lot of damage. He knows this because he killed all those workers, and he saw that, well, you lost a lot of Phoenix, and when it comes to Phoenix, they're a lot like Mutalisks in Terran versus Zerg in the sense that constantly building the count up is very important, and losing them can often be detrimental because you can never actually recover from losing them. Another thing worth noting is the fact that NonY went Robo and fell behind means that he's going to be skimping on observers most likely. What do you mean skimping on observers? Well, whenever a player falls behind, whether it be with bases or workers, one of the ways that they have to come back into the game is picking and choosing what they want. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean NonY desperately needs a Warp Prism and Immortals to try to break this. I'm just going to pause it right here. So NonY has to do damage here because Rob's third is about to finish. The fact that NonY was behind means that he wasn't able to make an observer. He was desperate for that Warp Prism and those Immortals. So now Rob has an observer hovering over his army, and right now every movement that NonY makes is going to be scouted by Rob, and Rob can already set up a defensive position up here. So Rob is going to be right up at the perfect spot. He's going to blink away Blink Stalkers from the Speed Zealots, and this is why Blink Stalkers are so strong. Anytime NonY wants to commit to a fight, Rob can easily run away and avoid taking damage. And suddenly NonY has a Warp Prism out here, but Rob's going to try to snipe it. Rob going in very deep. He does. He snipes the Warp Prism, and that is terrible for NonY. And NonY, of course, set up the Warp Prism right here because probably wasn't aware of the fact that there was an observer scouting him the entire time. That's another powerful thing about having an observer over your opponent's army. Oftentimes they don't know, and they will make decisions thinking that you do not know what they know, you know, the vision on their army. So that means that they will do somewhat brazen things like that. Now, if NonY knew Rob had vision on his army, he might have had the Prism up here, but he's going to press up into the third. The Speed Zealots immediately start to focus the pylon, and Rob intelligently puts a force field over it so it can't be killed by melee units and fires up an overcharge. This is something tricky whenever you have a Speed Zealot army, is anytime you get poked, the Speed Zealots want to charge in, and here they go. The Speed Zealots are going to run in, but Tesla has a lot of adepts now, and he also has 1-1. So things are looking bad for NonY as he's yet to take this third, and Rob is mining a lot. And these upgrades are very important, these resonating glaives and 1-1, because already NonY is behind in workers, and he's also behind in upgrades. So if these upgrades finish, the deal will be completely sealed, because fighting 2-2 versus 0-0 in a mirror matchup is just utter butchery. It just can't be done. NonY is going to try to press up into this ramp in a last-ditch effort. He's very behind economically, and adepts are going to do tons of damage to these light zealots. And NonY presses up into the ramp, but KingTesla, aka Rob, had a wonderful defensive position. And it looks as though the Pennsylvania Protoss is going to be able to vanquish the Brood War veteran. And NonY is going to fall here. After a long hiatus, he has not forgotten to be well-mannered, and that's the game. So Rob takes it. Exciting game. Subscribe for more.